Hello, class, and welcome to the review video for essay number 1. After looking at the documents submitted, I want to just remind everybody of what's the focus of each part of the essay. As we know, critical thinking is looking at things in their parts, right? As it says, analyzing it, breaking it into its parts to better understand the whole. And if you remember the story from Bird by Bird, the book, Some Lessons on Writing and Life in Writing Logically, Thinking Critically, on page 9, remember the father gives the son advice. He's got to write a report on birds. And he says, just take it bird by bird. Now, a lot of times people say day by day, step by step, part by part, bit by bit. For the essays, let's take them paragraph by paragraph. Let's take them sentence by sentence. So starting with the intro, right? Everybody's doing a good job of presenting background information. Should have a bare minimum, right? 5 to 7 sentences of background. Okay, what background? Well, what is your subject and what's your topic? Your subject is the story of an hour, and your topic is to analyze the ending. So you may start with some plot summary. You may start with personal response, an anecdote, maybe a personal experience, a personal observation, a personal feeling. How'd you feel after you read the story for the first time? So you might give some plot summary on the short story. You might give some brief biographical information on the author. And in addition to getting documents from the library database, whenever you're writing a paper for this class, if the author has a homepage, you can use documents from that, or biography.com or history.com. They have homepages for most, if not all, authors that you'll find yourself writing about. Remember, the library database is a great one-stop, boom, you just go there and grab your sources, but you can use other sources as long as they're reputable. And if you remember, we had the section in this book about using reliable sources, and this book as well. So by now, and you should feel confident that if you're going to get sources from databases and websites other than the libraries, that's okay, as long as the database or website or company has ethos. So that being said, intro paragraph, start with background. I always recommend an anecdote. For this class, remember, when we read about literature, we learn about life. When we write about literature, we learn about ourselves. That's what they said, right, in that first reading about why read literature. So maybe start with a personal reflection when you begin the essays. What'd you learn about life? What'd you learn about yourself? Brief plot summary, brief biographical information, right? Lead into the thesis, right? So after you provide that 5 to 7 sentences of background on your subject and topic or theme, maybe you might reflect on marriage or identity or joy or independence or autonomy or freedom or confinement. What it was like to be a woman back then, milieu. Remember, that falls under setting, the political and social context of the cultural situations of the time. So again, start with background. The thesis, it should be a well-written, clear. I say that 3 times. Clear sentence. Answer the question. Does Louise Mallard die of J-O-Y? Is it literal joy? Answer would be yes. Ironic joy? Answer would be no. Something else, symbolic or metaphorical joy? Answer would be no. Or maybe is it a little bit of more than one thing? Okay? Louise Mallard does or does not die of joy because. Finish the thought. Take your opinion, Louise Mallard does or does not die of joy, and make it a claim by adding a reason. Right? Then you should have a sentence that lists out or mentions the elements of fiction if you already have not mentioned them in the intro. Some of you started by discussing theme and plot and character, and then you led into your thesis and you put those elements of fiction as part of your background. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Because somewhere in the intro, you need to give background on your subject and topic, clearly state your thesis, and let the reader know which elements of fiction, pages 76 to 79, reading and writing about literature, the section writing about stories, plot, character, setting, symbols, style, point of view, theme, is the essay going to focus on. Okay, so now that you've got your intro paragraph down, and some of you might say, Craig, I talked to a couple people on the phone. Craig, I'm having problems coming up with the elements of fiction. Well, maybe put that elements of fiction supporting sentence in the intro when you're done with your body paragraphs. Look, you don't have to do things in exactly the same order that I suggest. That is why I marked your intro paragraphs complete, even if you might have been missing things. It's a draft. As long as you're submitting it, I don't expect it to be perfect. You're submitting it so you can get feedback from me. Okay? So keep that in mind. So again, just make sure when you submit the final essay, the elements of fiction are present somewhere in the intro. So some students might like to write the draft first and then go back and be like, oh yeah, okay, paragraph 2 was on plot, paragraph 3 was on milieu, paragraph 4 was on symbolism, and paragraph 5 was on diction. Okay, so take those ideas and then list them out or mention them in some matter of fact in the intro. Make sure the element of fiction you're focusing on in each body paragraph is clearly stated. Make sure you quote from the story of an hour in each body paragraph. You're analyzing the story. There should be a quote from the story. There should be details, examples, facts. Somewhere in the essay, you need to quote from each of your 3 secondary sources, right? I would suggest avoiding putting them all together in one paragraph, space them out. Remember, the 4-page essay guidelines are just that. They're guidelines. You can go beyond. That's the minimum. You don't have to stop at 4 pages. So if you end up going on to the 5th or the 6th page, that's okay. So don't like all of a sudden, if you get to page 4, you still want to analyze another idea, or you haven't finished developing it. It can go beyond that. Okay. So again, the last thing you want is I want to write more. But again, I'm not trying to say when you see 4-page minimum, that's what it is. It's minimum. Okay. So, but make sure you have quotes from the story, at least, right? One quote from each of your secondary sources in your conclusion, right? Those are your body paragraphs. We all know a body paragraph, right, should have topic sentences and details and transitional or concluding sentences, right? Now, what should your conclusion do? I call it the 3 R's, the letter R, because all 3 of the words start with R. Repeat, review, reflect. Repeat the point. Review your supporting ideas and reflect on the bigger picture, on life, on the theme. What did you learn about life? Repeat the point. Does she die of joy? Is it literal? Is it ironic? Is it symbolic? Is it metaphorical? How'd you support it? What were the details, facts, and examples that you used when analyzing the elements of fiction to prove your thesis? And last but not least, and this is the most important part of the conclusion, reflect. A few sentences. Look, the conclusion doesn't have to be 7 to 10 sentences like a good intro and a good body paragraph should be. There's no real, minimum other than I'd say like 3 to 4 at least. But a lot of times you can repeat and review in 1 or 2 sentences, and you can reflect in a sentence. So again, you have a lot of freedom in the conclusion, but make sure you reflect on the big picture. Okay, works cited. Please follow the guidelines in the book and make sure your works cited entries are done according to MLA format. It's logos. It's logos. You have a lot of freedom in your interpretations and your analysis, right? But works cited, citing sources, using quotation marks, in-text citations, that's all logos. You have to follow the directions for format and punctuation. Okay? So if you have any questions, make sure you ask me, right? I'm here to help. Everybody who submitted their intro so far should have gotten some feedback from me. If you got a complete on it, it means you're well on your way. Again, it demonstrates to me that you've read the assignment, that you've read the story, that you understand what you need to do. It's okay if your intro needs work. I'll be looking at your body paragraphs shortly and giving you some feedback on that. But make sure if you have MLA format issues, you consult with the pages in the books according to the format issues that you're having. So, that being said, the last thing, and this is my favorite thing to talk about, the title. The title. Have fun with your title and try to use a figure of speech in it. Maybe you use a pun. Maybe you play with homonyms, words that sound the same but mean different things. Maybe your title has a metaphor or a simile or an analogy or some personification, right? Think about it. A rhetorical question, right? Who cares if Johnny can't read? Personification. Because I could not stop for death. On my first son, right? Personification as well. Think about these ideas that you're trying to convey and try to come up with a catchy title. My last piece of advice, look to your intro, look to your conclusion for a group of words or maybe a phrase or an idea that's catchy. My English teacher, when I was a wee lad, right, told me you're most creative in your intro and conclusion, and that's usually where you'll find a phrase, a group of words, or an idea that you could turn into or will inspire you to create a title. It's pretty good advice. So hopefully it will serve you well too. Thanks for your patience, and let me know if you have any questions.